Hello everyone, welcome to today's comprehensive session on YAML. I am Aryan and this is my task 3 presentation for the pre-required tasks. Now in this session we'll be exploring YAML starting from history of it, and then we'll understand what exactly is YAML, how is it different, and finally exploring practical examples and applications for it. So moving on to the history, YAML was initially introduced back in 2001 by Clark Evans and team. Initially, YAML stood for yet another markup language, indicating it was intended as a simple alternative to markup languages like XML and HTML and such. However, due to YAML's unique design and simplicity and how it was used by other developers and all those people around that time, it gradually evolved beyond mere markup. In recognition to this, YAML was as a joke, not joke, but humorously redefined as YAML ain't markup language, reflecting the powerful use of language, uh, sorry, reflecting its powerful use as a data serialization language rather than traditional markup languages. Over the year, YAML's readability and simplicity made it an essential standard in modern software development and system administration. Now, for a fact, even the website for YAML is present in the YAML format. Like this is the official website for YAML. And as you can see, it is present exactly in the format of a YAML file of how a YAML file would be. Now, let's see how we can write YAML files. So first off, writing comments, we write comments in YAML with hash as we do in Python. For defining simple key value pairs, we write like this, like name would be Aryan, age, profession. We can include things like hobbies, or we can say university. So this explains what university do I go to. That would be IN, right? So YAML is really useful and easy to use. Now for writing lists, we write in this format. Like first of all, define the key, and then as a list, like a list, how would we write? We write it simply like coding, reading, traveling, maybe drawing or singing, like this. And this is how we write lists in YAML. Now it can be like we use lists normally to write down the properties for an object. So that is when we use a list. Now it might happen that we want to write about any object, and like we have like or object or a service, and we have to define some configurations about it, right? So we use dictionaries or maps which can be written like this. First of all, we write the main object, and then we write the sub objects like this, like street, city, and zip code, which is essential part of an address. We can also include something like landmark, which can be India Gate in this, like in this example, right? So we basically use dictionary whenever we want to define the define configuration for any object like this. Now, it may happen that we have to write about multiple objects of same type, right? Properties of objects of same type. That time we use something like lists of dictionaries here, like explaining employees. and like name and like employees. One whose name is John, whose role is developer, and hobbies include coding and reading. Second would be name as Ria and role as a designer. We can also write hobbies for her, which could be something like archery, right? Or something like painting. Now, the main thing which is important in YAML is maintaining these indentations, just how we follow indentation rules in Python. Similarly, we have to follow them in YAML, because if we write something like this, like we have an indentation which goes something like this, like we give another indentation. After four spaces, we write something like software head, right? So this would create an error here if we run this, because now we have a value, like we have an exact value and a key value pair, right? So this is not allowed in YAML. Now moving forward, why even use YAML, right? So first of all, it is human readable. As you saw in the example, it is really easy to read from for human eyes, and we can easily understand whatever is written. It is designed to be easy for humans to read and write. Now, data serialization, which means that it supports complex data structures like lists and dictionaries and makes it easy to use for even the people who are not so much into tech, and they can easily understand what is written. It is widely adopted, which means it is extensively used in many fields like configuration management, data serialization, as mentioned, and in development and writing about APIs and its configurations. Now, it is language agnostic, which means it is compatible with multiple programming languages. It is like widely used in Docker, Kubernetes, Ansible, and CI/CD, and because it is so simple to use and powerful. Many modern tools and frameworks also prefer YAML for configuration because it reduces the clutter and improves readability. Now, there are key differences between YAML, XML, and JSON, which may serve the same purpose but are really different. For example, readability. YAML is very easy to read, even for simple people and from non-technical background. It primarily focuses on readability with simple indentation-based structure, making it perfect for configuration and automation. XML uses tags, which offers robust structure, but it is really hard to read it. On the other hand, JSON strikes a balance between conciseness and easy for machines to parse. It is commonly used in web APIs and applications, but like it is comparatively harder to read than a YAML file. The real advantage of YAML clearly shines in scenarios where human readability and ease of editing are key priorities. Like hierarchically, like all of three have a native support, but when seeing about file size, YAML is the smallest of them, and comparatively XML and JSON are the largest file sizes. Syntax for YAML is very minimal and it can be written really fast and easily, whereas we have to follow a like strict syntax for XML and JSON files. Again, for example, we can see this. Like if I had to write about any person in different formats like YAML, JSON, and XML, So if I define a person and like me, so the name would be Aryan, the age and the skills can be mentioned really easily, right? So, but if we go to write it in XML format, then as you can see, first of all, it is so cluttered that a person might get overwhelmed when first seeing this format because they have to like go through, understand what's really happening here. Excuse me. And for JSON, it is comparatively easier to read than an XML. But if I had a choice to write an JSON and an YAML, I would prefer this YAML format because it is so easy to write and understand. Whereas in a JSON, we have to write it in this format where we have to like write these extra parentheses and the quotations to mention these things. So it really saves our time while writing a YAML file. Now, what to use YAML with? So YAML can be used, has practical use case for many things. Like it is like YAML is widely adopted and it is really easy to use with clear and practical use cases. Like for container orchestration, YAML is extensively used in platforms such as Kubernetes and Docker Compose, which makes it easier for us to orchestrate the Docker containers that we create and making our deployment easier for any application or services. It makes complex tasks simple by clearly defining services, deployments, containers, and resources. And it simplifies maintaining large scale applications across many servers. Now, it is also used for infrastructure as a code. Like like infrastructure as code is mainly used while automating infrastructure management, and YAML file simplifies defining and automating infrastructure resources such as servers, databases, networking, and cloud services, making infrastructure setup very easy. For example, it is used in tools such as Ansible or AWS CloudFormation to automate setting up complex infrastructure, ensuring consistency and rapid deployment. So YAML really helps in consistency and accessibility. Now it is also used in CI/CD pipelines like Jenkins and GitHub Actions, where the system rely heavily on YAML files to clearly define automation workflows and how and what would happen for software development processes such as building, testing, and deploying code. For example, when a developer pushes a new code to GitHub, a YAML defined pipeline automatically run tests, check qualities, and deploys application, simplifying software updates and reducing like manual intervention, saving human time. Now it is like the main use case for YAML exists in configuration management. Like it allows easy and clear representation of software settings or application parameters. For example, if you manage an application or database configuration, YAML stores these settings, making it straightforward even for non-technical team members to adjust configuration when necessary. For example, we may have different databases for deployment, server, and production, right? So these YAML passwords and APIs can be changed really easily in the YAML file, even from a person in the operations team who doesn't have much knowledge about how the development has been done. So solving the problem that it works in my machine. Now, YAML is used in many programming frameworks for clearly for clearly defining dependencies, configuration, and the project structure. For example, it is used in Flutter and Django to manage project dependencies and specify the versions and configuration and project metadata in human readable format, greatly simplifying project maintenance and setup. And finally, like not the least, but it can be used in artificial intelligence and machine learning projects for specifically for specific clarifications of structured hyperparameters, the training settings and dataset configurations, enhancing reproducibility and collaboration. For example, if you are conducting a machine learning experiment, YAML files can clearly document exactly how models are trained, tested, and validated, making experiments easily reproducible and understandable. And it also has many more applications that you can read from the resources. Now, advantages of YAML include simplicity and readability, as mentioned before, and its compatibility with modern tools and frameworks such as Flutter. Like once in our lifetime, I think we all must have added some package to our Flutter, depend like Flutter, right? So for that, it is really easy to use YAML. And of course, when concerned with versatility across different environments like Docker, Flutter, and Kubernetes, it is really easy to use YAML. Now, let's move forward and see how we can use YAML in a practical application. Apart from this, which could be used as a demo, we can use YAML to write a Docker Compose file where, first of all, we write the version, which is the latest version for the Docker Compose. After specifying the version, we mention the services that we want to use for our Docker container to have, where for the web container, we want to use the image engines and we want to run it on the port 80 of our machine. And when defining a database for this web service, we can like write the image that we want to use as Postgres latest, which will be pulled from the Docker registry. And then we define the environment variables for this image, the database, which would be the username, the password, and the database name that we want to give. And then we define the port that we want to use to host this like this database in the Docker container. And using this, we can easily write the Docker container configurations, which would be hard to write or comparatively harder to write or complexer when writing these configurations in the command line terminal. Now, we can also see that YAML files are used in Flutter projects for defining various dependencies. For example, here I'm taking the pubspec YAML file of the SAT NOGS visualization tool. So first of all, here we can see that the name, we define the name of the project, we give a description that is a new Flutter project, and then we write various comments here. And if you want to publish it to somewhere, we remove this line. Like if you want to publish it to pub.dev, we remove this none. And if you want to publish somewhere else, we mention it, the link here. Now we write the version that we have, the environment SDK that we want to use for our Flutter project, like it should be between 2.16.1, greater than this and less than version 3. Now, we can also define various dependencies that we want to use in our project, like the Flutter SDK would be Flutter. We want for if we want to use Cupertino icons, we mention the Cupertino icons, the version of it, the get it package, network info plus, shared preferences for local preference storage, the HTTP to send requests, the flutter.env to like write the our what can we say our secrets and importing them in the file, the path provider which helps in providing the path and storing locally in the emulator or our phone. The SSH package is necessary for the connection between like making the connection between the LG server and our like mobile applications. We also define the dev dependencies. Like if you want to test our application, what SDK will we use. We also mention the lens if we want to showcase any errors that we have, and we can also specifically like following section is as written here. The following section is specific to Flutter. So we write various things that we want to be there in our project. So here, first of all, we mentioned that we want to use material design, and then if we have any assets, we add it here. Like here, it has been added the .env file, which we have to create if we wanted to mention our own secrets. And then we mention the folder where all the images are present. We can also mention various fonts that we want to use in our project, like this, the family, and like here, as you can see, first we define the fonts object, and then we like both of these lists have same type because both of them are font. So this is font 1, this is font 2. So font 1 have these various properties like families, SVT, and font assets are present in this. Then the second one, the families, pop-ins, and the font assets and the weights are respectively this. So when after this, whenever we do pub get, our these dependencies and all this whole file, the whole environment would be created for us in the further project that we have created. So this was a short demo on how we can use YAML to like practically use YAML in our projects, and it can be really used for everyone who might be using Docker or like want to scale their project or application, or maybe adding any pubs, like adding any packages in the pubspec YAML file. Now, like for once when I said that indentation is very important for YAML, here if I give a indentation here, so as you can see, we get an error because now instead of these two being two separate two separate things for a project, this description becomes part of name here. Like you can understand that this becomes an object for this, like it is created in this name one. And in YAML, we cannot have exact value and further key value pairs for the same thing. So that's why we are having this error here. Now, if you're creating a YAML file to represent team members and their roles, it can also be done really easily. So you might be thinking that why we should use YAML finally. So as you can see, YAML provides clarity, simplicity, and versatility to a project along with wide compatibility across various modern development and automation frameworks, greatly simplifying our workflow and collaboration with everyone around the world. So this is all for today's video. And in this session, we learned about YAML's interesting journey from it being yet another markup language and then comedically renamed as a YAML intermarkup language. And we saw how powerful YAML is and how easy and clear it is to write YAML, how widely it is used in data serialization. And we explored some practical scenarios highlighting YAML's simplicity and readability. And that concludes our exploration of YAML today. And I hope you liked it, you learned something new, and you can start incorporating YAML into your projects today if you like, and you can see for yourself how it is easy to write YAML. So thank you everyone once again. This was Aryan.